I learned from a guy named Alex Nibley, who learned from a guy named Frank Daniel, who has his own Wikipedia page. This guy is a pretty cool guy. He was born in Czechoslovakia and he was blacklisted by the communists. And then he moved to America and became a screenwriting guru. He developed a theory that was stolen by a man called Sid Field, and who wrote a book called Screenplay or something like that. It's not really stolen, it's just sort of half as good. Frank Daniel created the screenwriting programs at NYU and Columbia, USC, UCLA. He was the dean at AFI, and he was the first creative director of Sundance. So I learned most of this through that tradition, and it's kind of like having a martial arts dojo where you really respect and revere your teacher and their principles, and so you're all sort of learning in that same tradition by being in this class today. Frank is dead. He smoked a lot. During my education, I discovered a secret weapon that has been the difference in my whole screenwriting career. It explained story structure to me. It answered a lot of questions for me. Why is Act 2 longer? Why do we call it Act 2? Why is that whole middle? Why is that all Act 2? Why do most stories follow this pattern of beginning, middle, and end? And it all relates to the way that the human mind works, that we learn in a three-part process. And as soon as I understood that, it just opened screenwriting to me and storytelling, both in terms of plot and character. It's kind of theoretical, but hopefully it'll sort of make sense on how it relates to screenwriting. So this theory, basically, you could say it goes back as far as Aristotle. But he didn't know that he had developed something so cool. He didn't know. So Aristotle was really obsessed with systems and trying to figure out the world around him. So one thing he did was he figured out parts of speech, verbs, nouns, adjectives, and they've never changed. We've never added another part of speech, not since the times of ancient Greece. So he thought maybe I could come up with the same category of the senses, like height, width, and depth, and they became known as Aristotle's category of the senses. And then a guy came along called Ferdinand de Saussure, who was the father of modern linguistics, and he founded a theory called semiology, based on the Greek word semeion, which means sign. But unfortunately, he died in the year 1913, and all of his research was lost. And it wasn't found again until several decades later, when his students found these materials and learned that he had created something called semiology. Charles Peirce was an American logician, and he also created a body of theory which he called semiotic. But unfortunately, he died in the year 1914, and his research was lost for several decades. He never knew Saussure. Saussure never knew him. They both chose to use the word semi-something. And Peirce was considered the greatest American thinker ever. Bertrand Russell called him the greatest American mind ever. James Dewey and Karl Popper studied him. They were contemporaries. And here it is. This is the secret weapon. And we're done. Okay, finished. This is the secret weapon. This thing has helped me write screenplays so incredibly much.